He's a China hawk. China's been screwing. Like, why is China 10%? And the other thing you got to say here that's so wild is the current tariff structure between the U.S., Canada, and Mexico is set by an agreement that was negotiated by Donald Trump's administration the first time around. It's the agreement that they made.
Except that you know that this isn't really about trade, right? This is about him trying to villainize some of our greatest trade partners and allies, and especially, I think, in the case of Mexico, to sort of reframe this as a question that's really about immigration and fentanyl when it has nothing to do with that. Let me read you the statement from Claudia Scheinbaum. She writes, "We categorically reject the White House's slander of the government of Mexico, alleging alliances with criminal organizations, as well as any intention to interfere in our territory. If the United States wants to combat the criminal groups that traffic drugs and generate violence, we must work together in a comprehensive manner, but always under the principles of shared responsibility, mutual trust, collaboration, and above all, respect for sovereignty, which is non-negotiable. Coordination, yes. Subordination, no. But he only speaks the language of power. So actually coming together and having that type of relationship would seem impossible for him."
Yeah, and I think you're right about this sort of the necessary role of demonization. I mean, to Michael's point when we started off of, like, part of Donald Trump's, key sort of way of operating, as I write in the book, is like this attentional dominance, even if it's negative attention. And he understands that, like, conflict drives attention. So he's picking fights because that is what drives attention. But the scarier thing here, and this is the thing that hasn't set in, it hasn't set in when you talk to Republicans, people on Wall Street, he has a pathological obsession with tariffs. Like, he genuinely, truly believes, like, yes, it's part stunt. Yes, it's part demonization. But also, you can't move him off this idea, this wrong-headed idea that tariffs are the solution to all of America's problems.
Simone, I was thinking of you last night. Did you notice? I went into my email, and there were like 5 different emails from the White House, as though they put out 5 statements from this. And I was thinking of you as someone who has done that work before, where it's like, it didn't project confidence. Right? No. Like, when you actually believe that what you're going to do is work, you're like, here's the thing, we're doing it. It felt like they kept explaining.
Yes, and I think the Wall Street, honestly, when the Wall Street Journal editorial board, which is the the editorial board, not the right wing, but still conservative, when they are smacking you down, I do think that there is this need to kind of flood the zone, if you will, with information that says, no, this is a good thing, this is a good thing. I think that those statements were a little bit more for the president and less for anyone else in Washington, D.C. or across the country. But, the reality is there are going to be real implications for this. I thought, because I was placing my orders yesterday, I'm not going to lie. And these tariffs, they will take effect on Tuesday. Anything shipped before Saturday will not be affected. But this is something that goes directly to kind of what people can feel and see. And Chris, I was thinking about your book in this, and you talk about how we've got sirens now all in our lives. Sirens are meant to compel. Anybody that knows sirens from the mythologies, if you will. But now we've got sirens all throughout our lives, going off in our bedrooms, on our TVs, everywhere. And it seems to me that the tariffs are will be directly connected to people's everyday lives. It's something people can feel. It's real for folks, and that will be something that grabs their attention.
Yeah, I mean, one of the tests here, right, is like how much, there's a real open question about how much what people pay attention to is actually organic in some sense of like what hits them and what is mediated through the attentional environment. And I think there's this idea a little bit that like the reality outs in the end, and it's not quite clear that's true. Like, it is true that pocketbook issues drive people. I think people will start to see those prices, but there's also storytelling that has to go along with that. I mean, when we had the big supply chain crunches back in the early parts of the Biden administration, there was tons of storytelling about that wasn't just, oh, my lumber's more expensive, right? So part of the role here, I think, for the Democratic Party, for independent journalists, is to actually tell the story in an intentionally compelling way about what's going on, because their job is to sort of distract from that or to draw attention to places they want to draw it, particularly Trump. But this question of like, will people start to see it and put that together is a little bit of an open question. I think they will, but I don't think it's guaranteed.
Chris, what do you think the siren call is for Trump relative, because you touched on it, relative to these three players, Mexico, Canada, and China? My assessment is, yeah, he projects he hates China. You know, everything is, China bad, China bad. Yet they're not penalized here the way our allies are, our friends to the north and the south. Instead of, let's negotiate a border deal with Mexico and Canada if you're concerned about fentanyl and drugs coming. Oh, by the way, Donald Trump, the largest purveyor of fentanyl coming into the country are United States citizens, right, not Mexicans. So just so you know. What do you think that siren call is for him relative to China? What is he hearing that actually weakens him when it comes to China? A lot of bloviating, not much agitation with respect to things like tariffs.
So here is a consistent thing that he's done. I think he likes the attention that conflict draws. He likes conflict with allies as opposed to actual adversaries. He is routinely and consistently picking fights, tougher on, getting into conflicts with allies, and sort of, extremely generous to adversaries. I mean, look at the way he talks about Russia. Obviously, the fact that China's getting off relatively cost-free here compared to allies. But look at the way he talks about NATO, the way he talks about Canada, the way he talks about Mexico. Like, what it is for him is he likes the conflict, he likes to project strength, but he's sort of a coward fundamentally. And the stakes of actual conflict and fights with adversaries is much higher. And so this is a way of kind of a little bit of bullying and cake and eat it too, where he can play tough against Justin Trudeau, which is a very different thing than playing tough against Xi.
And I just know it's what he did with it's what he does with Gavin Newsom or any Democrat he says he doesn't like. Yeah. He's all talk and then he gets on the tarmac like, hey, how you doing? Yeah. It's great. Good to see you.
And he says it like that. Hey, how you doing? He's got that little Mike Tyson voice. Chris,